teaching American politics. But I turned back to my department and I said, I don't want to teach American politics. And I said, I want to teach the Middle East courses. I love teaching. So I took the risk.
Welcome to Taking the Edge Off the Middle East, a series of casual conversations that offer up rare insider knowledge on the most important events in the broader Middle East and why it all matters to America today. I'm Brian Katulis. I'm host of the program. I'm a senior fellow here at the Middle East Institute. And today I'm so pleased to be joined by my dear colleague and friend, Dr. Marvin Weinbaum, senior fellow at the Middle East Institute. Marvin, welcome to Taking the Edge Off the Middle East, and let's take some edge off the Middle East in our conversation here.
Pleasure to join you, Brian.
It's great. So let me start where I usually like to start these conversations, because we're going to try to cover the full landscape, and you've had and you continue to have a very rich and full career. So we're going to try to go back and hit the rewind button on previous phases of U.S. policy in Afghanistan, Pakistan, maybe even Iran. But let's start with where we are today. We're recording this podcast in September of 2025. We'll release it a few weeks later in October. What's your assessment today? What's your take on the second Trump administration's overall approach to the world? We're about at the 9-month mark. What do you think about how he's dealing with the rest of the world writ large? And how do you see this comparing to what previous U.S. administrations have done?
It certainly is, if not unique, certainly distinctive, his foreign policy. You know, my observations are probably very much like everyone else's. I'm amazed at, especially in this second administration, I'm amazed at the way in which we have discarded the people who used to be our allies. We've been, our foreign policy all through the period that I'm aware of was really going back to the immediate post-war period. It's built around alliances, and to watch the way in which these have been discarded, in which our allies have been abused, it certainly stands out for me. I'm also amazed to the extent to which our foreign policy has become so personalized. My own experiences, including in the State Department, where I worked closely with the policy people, although I was on the intelligence side, I was always impressed by the talent in the State Department at the time. And even though in the Afghan war, as opposed to India, the State Department played a back seat, a lot of what we did involved Pakistan and India. INR played a very important role.
This is the Intelligence and Research Department at the State Department. Yeah.
It was something to watch. Even when we weren't directly going to be playing a major role, as in Afghanistan, we nevertheless were kept informed, and our opinions were heard. Academia was playing its role as well,
right,
as it had. Today, I have to say that the academy is absent almost entirely.
Yeah, no, that's one thing we're going to talk about and what's changed in this field, because you basically, you had as you mentioned, a period of service in the Intelligence and Research Bureau at the State Department, if I recall, late 1990s.
Both the Clinton and the Bush administration.
In the Bush administrations, yeah, and early 2000s. But you were a professor for many years in academia, but then you've mostly been at think tanks. So basically, to encapsulate your observation on Trump 2.0, as I call it, is that it's very personalized. It's not tending to the alliances and the relationships in the way that previous Republican and Democratic administrations tried to do, right? It has a different style.
Because it's personalized, it's very unpredictable. It's not built on a foundation there of expertise. I think everybody can observe this for themselves. based even on whims, on personal affronts, uh, which then turn into vindictive policies. You've heard it all. Everybody talks about this, at least who's not a MAGA person, and it's really jarring.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
as jarring as it is, because you're a consummate analyst, do you see any strategic benefit at all, any advantage, any leverage that America gets from this new approach by Trump 2.0 on foreign policy? Any at all?
Well, so far I haven't seen the fruits of it. Uh,
Hmm.
Now, maybe that will now change with Gaza. Yeah, I guess the one thing that it does suggest, and because I want to say every president has put his stamp on foreign policy. Uh, um, Jimmy Carter certainly was very crucial going back into the 70s in bringing together Egypt and and Israel. Uh, and I just find that there are times when the initiative taken by a president uh, independently, especially if he can establish particular relationships. But I think what's happening here is that these relationships have become the the be all. That
Yeah.
it's all based on our getting along. It's based on my convincing him of this. Could they could they be productive? Uh, Conceivably, in certain circumstances, yes. But generally speaking, uh, it's the kind of foreign policy that your allies and your enemies too can't really work with. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. So, though you're a careful analyst and you're saying it's a little too early to tell, you don't see any major benefits yet from this new style and approach. Let's delve a little bit more deeply into the area where you've spent most of your life studying and how the Trump second administration is handling the issues of Pakistan, Afghanistan, India. Quite famously, Trump likes to trumpet early on in this second administration how he solved this crisis that occurred between India and Pakistan. How do you see that, and how do you see his approach to that broader region of the world that you've
Now,
covered?
let me mention each country here. With Afghanistan, the hallmark of this policy here is almost total disengagement.
Mhm.
Uh, we have narrowly negotiated with the Taliban where we had some mutual interests, such as the evacuation forces. But generally speaking, the last connection we had with Afghanistan was our humanitarian program. That has now been removed. So uh, we haven't had a single diplomat in the country since August of 2021. And meanwhile, just about every other country that's a shareholder in Afghanistan in one way or another has, over this period of time, come to adjust to this regime, which is going to be around for a long time,
Mhm.
and to without formally eh, recognizing it. Only Russia has actually now formally recognized it, but they've all set up the kind of diplomatic structure that enables them both to express their own views, but perhaps more importantly, to learn to as the eyes and ears of what's going on there.
Yeah, which you would say we've fundamentally unilaterally disarmed ourselves, and we're cutting the tools of engagement we could use to shape and influence. We're letting others.
We've left the field open, particularly to the Chinese and the Russians, who are who are active there big time.
So, and President Trump recently said he had the goal of maybe getting access to Bagram Air Base back because it was close to China's nuclear weapons and things like that. What do you make of those sort of statements?
All through the negotiations, which finally led to the Doha negotiations in February 2021, all we tried to keep a foothold in the country. Of obviously to deal with counterterrorism. The military pressed for this particularly. They said, once we're out of there, our ability to conduct operations over the horizon is going to be very limited. And it's proven that way. Uh, except for one incident, we have virtually no forward policy there.
Yeah.
So we've always wanted that. At this point in time, Bagrama's Greenland.
Uh-huh.
Trump says, I want it. I like
Yeah.
it. He didn't make that condition back then. That wasn't one of the conditions. And of course, we signed the agreement extricating ourselves, our military. But there was a point here, too. The Taliban had made a point of principle that when they took over, foreign boots would be off the ground.
Right.
It's very difficult for me to conceive of any situation in which they would be willing to go back on that, unless perhaps we offered them something that they couldn't refuse. And it's got to be more than giving them political recognition, because de facto they have it from most of the world.
Right. Yeah.
Now, with Pakistan,
Yeah.
Interestingly, our policy has changed. And some people, particularly in Pakistan, would say for the better.
Uh-huh.
Biden went out of his way, it seems, to offend Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
Never spoke to any of the leaders. He just ignored Pakistan. We had minimal diplomatic contact. And at that point, what we did was to essentially push Pakistan further into the clutches, if you will, of the Chinese. Not that we were ever going to match them in terms of the amount of money we were going to spend there, but they had sort of written us off. Now, when Trump came back, there was a euphoria in Pakistan, mainly just to see Biden out of there because of their intense dislike for him.
Yeah.
But what we have seen, surprisingly, is the U.S. has come to embrace Pakistan. Now, why is this? Well, you can say, well, transactional. They're going to give us, help us with cryptocurrency, rare earth. They've got a wealth of talent there, and so you could find the currency in which to negotiate. But I think it's much more than that. What has happened now is effectively we've gone back to our traditional kind of policy with Pakistan, where we viewed Pakistan as a strategic security ally.
Yeah.
It was during the Cold War. It was during the jihad of the 1980s. And it was until we pulled out completely. And then there was Pakistan really never served our purposes, and it fit the Pakistanis' belief that, as always, the United States only stays as long as it's in their interest, and then they're gone. But now what has happened, and particularly so because of what's happened with India.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. And Pakistan now is viewed as a crucial asset for us. The relationship that has developed between the Pakistan military, and we traditionally have dealt with the military, and General Munir, he's just paid his second personal visit to the White House. This is extraordinary. We look at Pakistan, it's the largest Islamic country in the region, population-wise. It has the largest military in the general Middle East.
It's got nuclear weapons. Marvin, I want to ask you this. Are they sharing that umbrella with Saudi Arabia? I know you publish a piece on this.
No, they're not. They're not. But certainly they've changed the way in which they are prepared to cooperate in presenting deterrent to the countries. But Saudi Arabia has, I think, seen this as Pakistan has as a convenience here to have this relationship. Pakistan needs it for economic reasons, essentially.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, and Saudi Arabia wants very much to be more than an economic power.
Uh-huh.
It
Yeah.
it want it wants to have a military dimension to its strength, and it believes that at least in the deterrent area of deterrence, it now will have one with Pakistan. But the likelihood that Pakistan is ever going to have to come to the defense of Saudi Arabia is really remote.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So basically,
We're
yeah.
not going to go to Pakistan and Iran are not going to go to war. It's important for what it demonstrates on a larger scale because it's going on throughout the Middle East that there's much more integration here.
Right.
And the Doha conference that brought together the Arab states uh, plus Islamic states as well, and talked about more seriously than ever before an alliance among them all, including Iran. Uh, this is a step that, although we have every reason to be skeptical that will ever, given their differences, in other areas, but nevertheless, it intersects the defense agreement between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan intersects with that larger Islamic sense here of solidarity, particularly facing the challenges of Israel.
Yeah, that's a key thing, and I also think the uncertainty that comes with Trump 2.0, the unpredictability. What I think we've seen is even though some of these Gulf Arab states, which we know well, we go there regularly, you and I have traveled, in fact, and we'll talk a bit about that. There's a subtle hedging here, a concern that maybe the US and some of the old doctrines that it had in the 80s and then the 90s, the US is shifting away and shifting inward or shifting to other places. So there's a reordering I think that's happening here. Let's cover India quickly before I get to the rewind button I want to talk to you about. How do you see Trump in India? What's he doing there? Did he
I,
really resolve?
I haven't got the slightest notion of what he's up to. Our policy in India has for decades now, particularly as we weaned India away from the Soviet Union and Russia, has been based on having an anchor here, a security anchor in India, particularly vis-a-vis the Chinese. We're watching now, unless things can be reversed, how Modi is buddy buddy with the Russians and the Chinese. That was inconceivable before. The tariffs that we have deliberately imposed higher tariffs on India, uh, it's just shooting ourselves in the foot.
Uh-huh.
We so much have seen, and here India can do what Pakistan cannot do. Pakistan has a soft underbelly. India is a solid country,
Mhm.
much more advanced. Uh, you wouldn't want to really trade them, but it seems as if, in a sense, we've done that. And so I'm at a loss to understand what strategy is in this, what the rationale is in deliberately alienating. Now we're gonna continue to have ties with India economically. We have to. They need it. We need it. Uh,
Yeah.
but but in terms of security policy, uh, I just don't understand.
So to sum up on Afghanistan, you'd say Trump basically has ceded the field to others. On Pakistan, he's doubled down on what's been the strategic relationship traditionally for a long period of time. And with India, it's a big question mark as to where he's going. Last question before we go hit the rewind button. Trump likes to say that he was the key to resolving this very tense situation between two nuclear armed states, India and Pakistan, this spring. Do you see it that way, or how describe what happened there from your view?
That's really what pissed off uh, um, the yeah. Uh, he, there were there was a there were negotiations. The United States was involved, but by taking uh, uh, the immediately the Pakistanis took congratulated him. Uh, Now at this point, they're working with the United States, trying to ingratiate themselves with the United States. So they naturally overstated the American role.
Yeah.
India didn't want to play ball with this.
Uh-huh.
It didn't. Yeah, you were around, but you made no contribution really, and
Yeah.
that's probably the fact. Uh,
Right.
but that's uh, here. Trump saw the Nobel Prize hanging out there for him, and
Yeah.
Modi was uh, kicking it under the bus over there.
Yes. Well, this
Uh,
is the consequence, I think, of what I call reality TV diplomacy, right? Looking for strategic communications wins as opposed to actually building sort of those diplomatic relationships and doing the political work and things like this. I want to hit the rewind button in this conversation two times. And this first time, I want to go back to when you and I first met about 15 years ago. I was working at the Center for American Progress. My career has mostly been working in places like Jordan, Egypt, West Bank, Gaza. But I got involved in doing some studies and research on the ground in Pakistan and Afghanistan. My colleague at the time, Caroline Wadhams, had a working group where I think you and I met on Pakistan. And the thing I'd say about you, I think everybody knows about you, Marvin, is that you're not only a scholar, you're a gentleman. You welcome me, dilettante that I was, dabbling then at that moment on Pakistan and Afghanistan, and you weren't standoffish. You basically schooled me not only in these various working groups in DC, but you and I traveled to Pakistan in 2008 together on an election monitoring mission, and then we were in Kabul. So once again, thank you, Marvin, for being so warm and welcoming me into sort of this field of Afghanistan and Pakistan, at least for that period of time, and for being such a great traveling companion on those trips to Pakistan in 2008 and Kabul in 2009.
I really enjoyed meeting you at that point. You added really so much to the delegation that went, and so these were good trips, and you played a large role in that.
So I recall a big theme at that time, and earlier in the conversation, you mentioned President Biden and how he approached Pakistan when he became president. But I remember when we were in Islamabad in February 2008, we overlapped with Joe Biden, who was senator at the time. He was head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and there was this thing called, if you remember this, it was I think the Biden Lugar plan for Pakistan. Do you remember that? And all of this talk about 8, 9 years after
We were
9/11, we were going to have a not transactional relationship was the idea, but a strategic relationship once again with Pakistan. When you look at that period, and we can talk about Pakistan first and then Afghanistan, there was a debate about were we overusing the military tools, the drone strikes, and other things, and were we doing enough to engage the people of Pakistan to build a deeper relationship? You know, some people called it the smart power phase of U.S. policy, which was trying to invest more in diplomacy and development. What do you, when you look back on that, particularly in Pakistan, what worked and what didn't in the 2010s and during that phase?
Well, we based our policy pretty much after President Musharraf had lost his welcome in Pakistan.
Mhm.
We very much based it on creating a hybrid government. We were going to bring in Benazir Bhutto, and she was going to share power with Musharraf, so it would be a military civilian arrangement. This was our doing. We played a very large part in that. Uh, Now this is something which fell apart with her assassination, obviously.
Yeah.
But what did happen was an election took place in January of 2008. And at that point, then it was a question about whether the US really was prepared to deal with the civilian government. But we had an understanding with Benazir. Sadari was very much only interested in his own interests
Uh-huh.
and mainly financial interests, uh, and was part of a dynasty here that it just simply never won over anyone. But what I'm getting at really is that the military remained the important player.
Yeah, and especially at that time, the CIA set up a drone base, right? And we were doing things, and it's still in the war on terror in that phase. So everything that USAID or State Department were trying to do was a subsidiary to those other efforts. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. We did not ingratiate ourselves with the Pakistanis in this process, who believed that we could only work with military regimes, that we really had no interest in democracy. Uh, and it was a beginning really of a serious fallout with the Pakistan population.
Yeah.
We've never really recovered uh, their belief that the United States is unreliable, only works with dictators, and has remained very much to this day.
Yeah. Back in that phase, and just sticking with Pakistan, were you surprised after the fact that Osama bin Laden was where he was found and was killed in the heart of Pakistan at that time?
Well, I think most of us thought that he was probably squirreled away somewhere in Karachi.
Yeah.
Uh, that was a pretty audacious move on their part to place him where they did. And it showed the confidence that the military had that he was in control of things. It thought of itself as invincible in many respects. And yes, I think everybody was surprised. But that was 2011. And what happened was that came together with a few other incidents in which U.S. Pakistan relations really came to its lowest ebb.
Yeah.
Now, this is
Was
the Obama administration.
right. And wasn't there like a border incident where the US military killed Pakistanis along the border?
We killed, I believe, school children in our drone campaign was seen as indiscriminate, and we paid a heavy price for that too.
Yeah.
So anyway, when Biden, by the time Biden came in, he inherited a a policy here, which once the U.S. was gone militarily from Afghanistan, really was not likely to take off. And we tried then to present them with a financial picture, uh, package rather, but that Lugar proposition
Right.
was rejected there. Uh, Again, they interpreted this in a way that it was just another effort by the United States to control the country through the military.
Yeah, and try to buy them off in some sort of way, but use the
Yeah,
military
that
as their
was.
main interlocutor.
They were buying. They weren't buying it.
Yeah, so let's go to, Kabul. We were there in 2009 for the elections. Remember, we had so much security around us, and, some of
Oh,
the teams was it crazy for us for America and others to put so much stock in an election at a country that was suffering so much violence, or do you think that was
well, yeah, we did that because that was the only thing that really legitimized the regime.
Uh-huh.
Those elections. It had no other basis of legitimacy. It 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 wasn't part of the monarchy. Uh, it wasn't in any way Islamic. Had the Islamic credentials. Elections were for the regime all that they could stand on. The trouble was the elections from the very beginning, from 2004 to 2009, were blatantly corrupt,
Mhm.
and that only further eroded the support that people or confidence that people had in the regime. So much was placed on elections, and as we know, it took the United States in 2009 intervention, essentially, to keep to keep the government from falling apart. Uh, it was clear that you're absolutely right. We put all of our are really all of our marbles on the elections, and all it did was to reveal how incompatible the elite was in any efforts here to govern the country. Yeah.
I forget what your position was at the time after those elections, but there was the big debate. It was Obama's first year in office. Remember, he campaigned to end the Iraq War, but Afghanistan was so called the good war. So the debate over the surge in Afghanistan, and I know the various sort of the U.S. ambassador there was, if I recall, against the idea of sending more troops just because of this question of political legitimacy. I forget where you were. I remember you came up to me. There was some New America, another think tank panel. They put together something that was against the surge. I was not in favor of it. And I know you called me up and you were like, you thought I was in favor of like the position that was put out, and you were trying to persuade me otherwise, which is something that a lot of
Well,
people, yeah.
what it was at the time was that I took it as a last ditch effort by the part of the United States to to change the course of the war,
Yeah.
which and that was really what it was. And of course, the very fact that it had a cancellation date in 2014 meant that all the Taliban had to do was to wait it out.
Yeah.
And by 2011 at 12, we were already withdrawing down. We had upwards of 100,000 troops there. It was very much like Vietnam. You give it one last shot
Yeah.
uh, with everything you got, and if it doesn't work, you say, "Well, we made the effort."
Yeah.
But what we failed to do was to, in this process, to really put our emphasis on building the Afghan military.
Uh-huh.
That was an afterthought. After 2014, we got serious about it. And as a result, what proved out ultimately was a military which was not up to the task of defending the country.
Yeah.
It, basically, what we have to see this is we went into Afghanistan with uh, in, not nation building because that's something else, but state building.
Right.
We went in, and what we failed to realize, state building means building institutions.
Yes.
And this is a 20-year effort at least, but uh, you'd have to wait it out. You'd have to do everything possible. Uh, we just didn't have enough time to do that. But there were so many other difficulties. I don't want to get into the what went wrong, but although we made all kinds of mistakes, again, I think that the elite, the ruling elite in the country, really uh, played a very large role in the way in which it corrupted the military. It it corrupted so much in the society, and then couldn't it could never get together uh, to uh, to to rule the country. Uh,
S So our
that
key the key lesson there, I guess, for you then would be that, we should not have just simply taken the word of some of the corrupt elites that were benefiting from the arrangements that we had and the engagements, and that we should have had a deeper and longer approach. I mean, because 'cause you've studied this country for all of your
yeah,
life, right?
yeah, right. Look, it was going to always be a slog
Mhm.
because here we're working with a country which basically had, after the jihad, had no institutions whatsoever. We were starting from scratch. We fell into the trap as not just the United States, that once you come in and you make the investment and uh, you you find you're dragged in more and more because if you leave at any point, you forfeit what you've done.
Yeah.
And and this and this kind of uh, gradual involvement, deepening involvement, uh, we also underestimated seriously the nature of the insurgency.
Yeah.
We didn't we didn't appreciate how deep its roots were and how much. not that it was beloved by the people, but how much it stood to gain from the weaknesses, so that the weaknesses of the government mattered more than the strength of the Taliban for a long time. Uh, it, it forfeited really legitimacy to the Taliban, who always could fall back on the fact that they said, we are the bearers here of the true Islam.
Yeah. So, Marvin, you're a political scientist who studied Afghanistan and Pakistan for decades. And when you look at this period of very intense US engagement, it wasn't just the military, but the military also had these human terrain teams. There were sociologists. There was,
Oh,
I remember, if you remember the civilian surge, I remember going out with Jack Lew, who was the deputy secretary of state. There was a training facility that Richard Holbrooke set up, so we were deploying people, in USAID, what they called provincial reconstruction teams and things like this. So my question to you, as someone who studied this country, Afghanistan, for your entire life, for decades, did we learn anything from all of that intense effort, all of the sort of efforts by USAID, by different social scientists to go and try to understand societal trends? Or how do you look at that phase in the
well, I
2010s?
think we learned something, obviously, about state building. We certainly did that. And we learned also that if you're going to build, you got to have the materials to build.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and and the truth was that the materials were just not there. We did not have the ingredients that gave it a fair chance. Uh, and and the Taliban were resilient. They were consistent in local governance. They did things that were very important, like particularly the absence of any justice in the countryside. The Taliban brought in their own system.
Mhm.
And although we would consider it in some respects draconian, nevertheless, it was reliable and it wasn't corrupt
Yeah.
because judicial as well as the military were both corrupted. And and that further pushed the population away from the government. So all of the money that we put into it there was, it made a difference, but in the end, it's not really what mattered. We put up some buildings in Kabul and so on,
Yeah.
which made it look like it was a modern city or becoming a modern city, but it was a facade,
So, in the question of political legitimacy and who has the authority.
and that's what it all came down to, the lack of legitimacy.
Yeah. All right. So I want to hit the rewind button one more time, but go back even further, Marvin, and I want to ask you some questions. I've known you for now almost 2 decades, but I've never asked you these questions. I can't believe I haven't, on all the trips and the engagements here working together at MEI. How did you get interested in this field that shaped your life and career? What was the original spark that got you into this, Marvin?
Trip on my honeymoon to Istanbul.
What year was that?
That was 1966.
So you went to Istanbul with Francine, right?
Your friend, yes, the same wife.
I wasn't sure. I was.
Uh, and as we were leaving, we happened to be traveling in Europe, and we ended up in Istanbul, and we fell in love with the place.
Yeah.
And I said to Francine, as we were on a Russian Black Sea steamer that we took there and back. We were very adventurous in those days. Uh, we had no reservations anywhere. Okay, so we, uh, I said, we've got to find a way to get back here.
Yeah.
Now, here was the problem. At the time, this is late 1960s.
Yeah.
I'm teaching at the University of Illinois,
Uh-huh.
Champaign-Urbana, and I'm not teaching the Middle East course.
What were you
I'm,
teaching?
te- I'm teaching American politics.
Okay.
And by 1969, I had tenure. I had tenure teaching American politics.
Wow.
So Francine said to me, well, how can you do it? I said, I got to find a way. And I saw an advertisement, Ford Foundation, that they were supporting comparative studies in the Middle East. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take most of the analytic skills that I have in studying the US Congress, and I'm going to apply some of the notions of Huntington's notions of institutionalization to three countries, Turkey, as it was at the time,
Yeah.
Iran, and Afghanistan.
Wow. So Samuel Huntington, you took his ideas and applied it to these
Yeah,
three
yeah.
countries.
He was-
Uh-huh.
By the way, he was at Columbia at that time.
Oh, that's where you got your PhD, right?
Yes, yes. And Brzezinski was there too.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, and so I applied, and lo and behold, I got a lot of money, enough for me to take the family and go to Tehran, and delayed getting there because our daughter was born. I said, I don't think we should go until she's a year old.
Uh-huh.
So I got in 1969. We didn't get there till January of 1970.
Okay.
And in the grant, I was flying directly to Ankara and to Kabul.
Okay.
And that's how I first went to Kabul. We came back 3 years later and lived in Kabul.
Amazing.
But but I turned back to my department and I said, "I don't wanna teach American politics
You're
anymore."
done with politics. Good call by you, by the way. Have you seen
Yeah,
what's happened in US politics?
yeah, yeah. No, I didn't like where the field was going. It
Yeah.
was becoming hyper empirical. It
Uh-huh.
was bean counting. My interests in policy were becoming subsumed into what your data said. Uh, and although I could hold my own for a while in that, I ultimately would not flourish.
Yeah.
So I went to my department, and they said, tenure on you now, and that's crucial.
Yes.
They couldn't fire me. I said, "I wanna teach," and they said, "Okay." And I said, "I wanna teach the Middle East courses." I had boned up in the 6 months bef that we delayed going. I studied Farsi.
Wow.
I I read everything I possibly could on, particularly on Iran, because we are gonna be living in Iran, and Turkey, and not much to read on Afghanistan at the time.
Yeah.
Louis Dupree was the only one who was writing anything of importance. And they said, yes, you can do it. But everything that you've done to warrant your getting tenure is off the books. If you want to do that, you start all over again.
Wow.
So that if you're looking to become full professor, you're going to have a record that would warrant it based on your publications primarily. The teaching was fine. I had all kinds of teaching awards. I had no problem on that. I loved teaching. So I took the risk.
Yes.
I said, I said, I'm going to do it. That shows you what my commitment is.
Yeah. So that's a key lesson for future scholars or people who are trying to learn from you is follow your passion, right? And take a risk.
You're going to have to take risks. Uh, Now, they should be smart risks. Uh, don't do anything, which is going to leave you utterly vulnerable.
Right.
I guess it took 3 additional, maybe 4 years till I got full professor, but I I took on their terms and succeeded.
Amazing. And you did this as a young family and there was some risk and things like
Oh,
that.
oh, we lived in Tehran and then Kabul. We had in Tehran, well, let me say in Kabul, we had a 1-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
Wow.
And
What was it like to live in Tehran in the early 1970s? Now, reminding everybody, this is before the Islamic
the
Revolution.
Shah, the Shah is in power.
Yeah.
He's got everything going for him. And I was an advisor to the people in government. I was associated with Tehran University because the University of Illinois had an office in Tehran. That was the reason that I went particularly to Tehran. Uh, they were able to give me an office, and Francine taught in the university. It was very pleasant to live there. If you now you could be a dissident. I spent a lot of my time with dissidents,
Uh-huh.
and the rule was just don't get up on a soapbox. and express. eh, You can talk in the chai khanes, the tea houses.
Yeah.
You can talk all you want about politics, but don't become public about it.
So, Marvin, I did my homework on you and I talked to many people, including people you knew in the early 70s in Tehran. And one of them told me you were a thespian, that you were part of the theater scene. I had to explain to some of the young folks here at MEI what a thespian is. They thought it was something else, like related to LGBTQ. Do you remember that and being part of that?
They were ahead of themselves. I didn't really do that. In 1981,
Uh-huh.
so a little later, the children were a little more grown up.
Yeah.
We lived in Islamabad. No, let me go back. 76, 77. It was just 2 years later.
Uh-huh.
We went there, and Ani Rayful, you remember Ani Rayful?
Yeah, the
Right,
former ambassador. Yeah.
former ambassador. He was ambassador and died in the plane with Mysterious. It was he who organized a theater group. It was picking up from the Brits who had it earlier, called the Rawalpindi Amateur Players.
Yeah. And you were part of
And,
it?
well, we put on a production
What was
of
it?
Woody Allen's Don't Drink the Water
Don't Drink the Water, Woody Allen in Pakistan. That's what you did.
in Pakistan. And Francine and I had the lead roles in this. And we gave performances. We were supposed to put it on the road, in fact, throughout Pakistan. Uh, but what happened was that's when the roof caved in on Zulfikar Ali Bhutto,
Oh,
who was
yeah.
then prime minister. And he was from that point. There was an election which he stole an election that he won and never recovered from that.
Yeah.
So he was gone by July. But anyways, that was it. Now I carried on that tradition. In 1981, 82, I had a Fulbright to Cairo
In Egypt, yeah. Uh-huh.
in Egypt, and and had an association with Cairo University. And there, I put on the production that Arnie had put on, and we enacted it. Uh, so that's and now in this building that I live now,
Yeah.
I put on the same production
What?
for the 400 people who live in this building.
Amazing. Here in Washington, D.C. It's the same Woody Allen production?
Yeah, I wouldn't go into it, but it's hilarious.
Okay.
They made a lousy movie of it. They miscast it. So I had studied theater as an undergraduate, yeah, as a sideline. So it didn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah. So the another key lesson here for young scholars is to do your work as a scholar, but then be multidimensional. Follow your other passions and make sure that the thing that makes your life enriched, in addition to family, but your love for theater. Keep
Take
those.
on challenges. That's what will keep you going, even to your 90.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you're there. You made it.
Take on challenges, and that will keep you alive.
Yeah, maybe a couple more questions if you've got time for me. I know we've had some technical difficulties putting this together, but I'm loving this discussion. When you think about all the places you lived, Cairo, did you live in Kabul or did you just visit in Kabul?
We lived in Kabul,
Tehran, Islamabad, other places.
Jerusalem.
Oh, Jerusalem. Yeah. What?
Lived 6 months. By accident, we were on our way to Afghanistan. King had been overthrown. We were told by the Fulbright Commission to hold on. We held on. The trouble was, it was October 1973. We were caught in the middle of the 73 war.
Oh, wow. Okay. Uh-huh.
So we spent our first day there in a bomb shelter.
Wow.
So we went to Cairo in 81 and Sadat was assassinated. So we've had some memorable years abroad.
Amazing. What place did you love living the most? I know it's hard to pick. I have that problem too. I've lived in many different places, but one that stands out over all of these years.
Kabul.
Kabul. Why?
I love the people.
Hmm.
There's a word in Persian, tarof, buttering up.
Yeah.
If you ask them to do something, they'd say, of course we'll do it. These were straightforward people.
Yeah.
These were honest people, hardworking people. and particularly the Hazara population, the Shia population, a minority population, racially also different. They were they were the people you hired uh, if you were going to have servants
Yeah.
because you trust them. And marginal people in any uh, place always try harder.
Uh-huh. That's interesting. So when you think about all of the research you've done, the visits, and meetings, with leaders, is there one memorable one that stands out for you, one that you'd never forget? Any leader or particular person? Y
Well, I got very close to Benazir Bhutto,
Yeah. She's the
former prime minister, and who was assassinated in December of 2007.
Yeah, at the end of
Uh,
that. Yeah.
I learned something about the elite in Pakistan that was quite revealing. Uh, there have been a lot of uh, traveling as a student in the Soviet Union, uh, going when I was living in Pakistan to China during the tail end of the Cultural Revolution. These are the events that really do stand out for me. And as far as meetings are concerned, the, I felt very special. I went with the uh, assistant secretary and the deputy secretary together to Moscow in 2000 to negotiate with the Russians on supporting different, well, putting different clamps on the Taliban, you know, different sanctions on them. And it was a wonderful view of how they operated
How Russia operates, yeah.
in Russia. And what I will never forget is uh, I was in the State Department and I was a negative on this. They were they had nothing else, so they were throwing these sanctions, which were meaningless,
Uh-huh.
and they only pushed the Taliban further away.
Yeah.
So I will never forget uh, the one of the Russian diplomats came up to me. He said, "You know what? We agree with you." You know, I didn't express the negative in front of the Russians,
Right.
but he said, but he was saying what I was saying. This is all ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
These sanctions have are backfiring on
Mhm.
us. But he said, but you're the United States. We're Russia,
Mhm.
new Russia.
Yeah.
He said, "You want that? You can have it."
Oh, there you go.
The yeah, the attitude was, this was our show,
Yeah.
and they were willing to go along with whatever we did.
That was a particular moment in time, right? 25 years
It
ago,
was, it
and
was.
end of the Cold War, we had won and
That's before Yeltsin fell.
Mhm. Yeah, and that was then and this is now, and that's certainly changed in the last, quarter century. So maybe a couple more final questions. What did you like better when you think about we worked together at the think tank here. You had your spells in government, your government service, and then academia. It's such a rich career. Is there one that you prefer over the other or that you look back on with fondness?
It's one of those cases where everything in its time. I stayed at the University of Illinois for 33 years. I thought I was thriving there. I enjoyed the students. I enjoyed teaching. Uh, but when it came to the late 90s and I came to Washington, uh, I had been in Washington before as a congressional intern
Mhm.
when I just was a young professor.
Yeah.
So I liked Washington, but I came to Washington and I said, gee, this is where the people are that are interested in what I'm interested in. I
Yeah.
said, I wasn't yet completely at retirement age, but I was just a couple years short of it. I said, I'm going to retire and we're moving to Washington. Just at that point, I got the call from Walter Anderson, who is heading the South Asian section in the Intelligence and Research State Department.
Uh-huh.
And he said, why don't you come on and join us?
Amazing.
Uh, and he said, I said, well, I'm just so happened that I'm on my way. And so I stayed 4 years. Uh, but now that was a great experience. Look, uh, to have been in Powell's office the day
At Colin Powell's office.
after 9/11
Yeah.
and to get tasked by him as they were preparing the speeches. That you know, it it was a complete break from what I had been doing,
Yeah.
but a delightful one. Learning all of the code words, uh, I had the highest clearances. It was something I could never have imagined before. But after 4 years, I said, enough. I'm glued to this screen. I'm tired of getting up at 5:30.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's where MEI was waiting for me, and they welcomed me. And that was 23 years ago.
Amazing. Yeah. And it's a good life, the think tank life. But as you say, government service and God bless those who have served in government. It can be a grind, especially these positions where you're on.
Even though I was in the most interesting places, as I say, I got to travel, I got to meet fascinating people. Uh, Ultimately, it came down to the fact this was a very tedious job, and I was completely dependent upon the classified sources. I couldn't work with the open sources, but I knew that the open sources were valuable.
Yeah. And that's maddening.
I was taking the traffic that was coming and try to make sense of it for the Secretary of State.
Yeah.
The memo that went directly to him. It didn't get clearance anywhere except in our own group. We were happy with it, and I never got anything rejected uh, in that time. Uh, that was a one-time, experience. But after I had it, I had it.
Yeah,
And
would you say that that was the biggest impact you had in your career? Like the business when you look back on success stories and things like that, was it that period post 9/11 in the State Department?
no, I think that I would. I have I have reason to look back favorably at all three periods, and that includes the years since. I
Yeah.
have so many opportunities at the Middle East Institute. I've not never taken a salary. I've I've had on consulting
Yes.
and on my pension. Uh, I've wanted to be free. I've
Yes.
never asked for a salary. Uh, I said, give me a desk, give me a research assistant or two, uh, give me a platform to speak. I said, that's worth a lot of money to me.
Yeah, no, and you're the consummate, analyst. I mean, I've seen this in the work before I came here at MEI and the way you, mentor the next generation. You're connected to this community. I have to tell you, one of my previous guests on the podcast, you may smile at this, Ambassador Dan Shapiro. He told me about the connection he has with you in that you were at his bris.
There were three of us there. His father, a colleague of mine in the political science department, and well, I'll never forget it because in the middle of the memorial, who was unwrapping.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't go into it.
Okay,
But
yeah, please don't.
uh, uh, the guy fainted dead away
Whoa!
right in front of the operating. It was in a hospital.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing. Wow. Okay. But you're connected to these communities, the policy community, academia, the people who served in government. And whenever I talk to people, there's just infinite respect for you, Marvin. You're a great colleague to have at the Middle East Institute. And I had one last question for you. We sort of covered it, but when you think about an undergraduate student or a graduate school student who wants to follow in your footsteps, what do you think they should do today? What's your
Oh,
informational interview for them answer?
that continues to be my answer for undergraduates. Get the broadest liberal education you can get.
Uh-huh.
Uh, um, in the sciences as well as the arts. Uh, Broaden, take as wide a spectrum of courses as you possibly can. Uh, this is your foundation, really, for so much of the rest of your life. The
Yeah.
enrichment of so much of the rest of your life. This is it. Now, when it comes to graduate students and specializing, here the roof is caved in.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what to advise. Uh, what I would normally have suggested in terms of particular coursework, skills, languages, and so on, it's been upended, obviously, by AI.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I could not in good conscience say to anyone, I think you ought to follow in my footsteps with respect to academic career. It's just not there, and it's not going to be fulfilling in the same way as it was for me.
Yeah. So the times have changed and you have to
Uh,
find your own
and
way.
and the fact is, we don't know what lies ahead. Uh,
Yeah.
we have we have no idea, and I feel it particularly because I have my own grandchildren who are entering the force. One of them already, well, two of them have already. One is unemployed, uh, and eh, I'm amazed at what they're facing and what they're going to face further on.
Yeah, because of the
So
technological
the
changes and
technology, it really the everything has changed from underneath us. Uh, all of the things that we took for granted now are up for questioning.
yeah. But to sum up, though, you would say, despite all this uncertainty, one key lesson from your life is to take risks. You could get the broad knowledge of a liberal education, and then you can adjust later, as you did. You went from a specialist on U.S. politics to someone who's one of the most respected experts on Afghanistan and Pakistan. You lived all around the world, and that your career will have many different phases, and there's certain things you can't control, like the shifts in technology or bigger trends in the world, but you can always try to stay in touch with the different things that give your life and your career passion and meaning.
I would add only one thing, which I mentioned earlier: look for challenges.
Yes. Yeah.
Look for challenges. Uh, that's what will keep you, I think, uh, uh, keep you in your game.
Yeah.
Uh, Once you start accepting what you have as necessary, uh, look for something beyond it.
Yes.
Beyond it, uh, keep working at that, and I think that, if anything, for me, I view that as the real key to what makes for an interesting life.
Yes. Well, you've certainly had one, and I really am grateful, and our listeners are too, that you've taken an hour with us and Marvin to tell us your views on the current events, the recent events, and then your trajectory. I learned a lot from it just in this conversation, and I really am grateful to have you as a colleague and a friend, Marvin.
I feel the same way, and thanks for inviting me.
Great. Thank you, Marvin. That's all the time we have this week. Again, thank you to our listeners for tuning in and to our colleagues for their work on this week's episode. You can follow the Middle East Institute on X, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and subscribe to our email newsletters for the latest analysis and information about upcoming events. I'm Brian Katulis. We'll see you all very soon.